if you get anything out of this podcast from my side, create a budget ahead of time. Budgets are probably, I think, one of the most financial aid-wise, I think the budget's the most important thing you can do before you start.
This podcast is a production of Widener Law Commonwealth in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For more information, visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu/podcast.
Welcome to Widener Law Commonwealth's podcast. I'm Val Hawkins, and today we're diving into everything you need to know about applying to law school. How to put together a strong application, what admissions officers really look for, and how to make law school more affordable with scholarships and financial aid. Whether you're set on becoming a lawyer or testing the waters, we've got the answers to your biggest questions. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to say a big thank you to our guests today, Matthew Kerns from our admissions office and Matt Brown from financial aid for joining us. We know both of you have a lot on your plates, so we really appreciate you taking the time to share your insight and help demystify the law school application process and financial aid process for our listeners. This conversation is all about giving prospective law students the information they really need. So let's get started. So this segment is more about the admissions process and what our students need to know, prospective students need to know. All right, let's start by dispelling some false assumptions. Matthew Kerns, what is the biggest misconception about law school admissions that you'd love to clear up right away?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that the only thing that matters in law school admission is the LSAT or GRE scores and undergraduate GPA. You know, those are two numbers that students always go to look for and think that the only things that matter in the admissions process, which is just not true. We're looking for well-rounded students that can succeed in law school. LSAT and GPA play a role in that, but they aren't definitive factors. We're looking for a work ethic, we're looking for grit, we're looking for determination, and those things aren't reflected in the numbers. Students are more than numbers, and you know, through our holistic admissions process where we look at everything in an application, you know, we're looking for that well-rounded individual that can succeed in law school and really excel in the profession.
And for those who are on the fence about law school, what is one thing they should really consider before applying?
Yeah, I think when students are considering law school, there's two questions that they really need to ask themselves. The first is, why law school? And I think that's a question that they are internally asking themselves and getting to know themselves about. What are you passionate about that makes you want to go to law school? What is driving you to take on the challenge of law school? I don't want students to come in and think that law school is going to be easy or a walk in the park. It's certainly not. And so you have to have that internal drive, that internal ambition, and know what your passion is. You don't have to know exactly what type of law you want to go into. Lots of people come to law school doing one thing and come out doing something completely different, and that's totally fine. But usually that underlying drive is, no matter what law you're practicing, is still there. And so students really need to take the time and reflect on why they want to go to law school and what they're passionate about. And then the second question I think students should ask themselves is, why that law school that they're applying to? And that's a little bit more of an external question. That means they have to go out and do research about the law schools that they're interested in. Do they have programs that they want to participate in? Is it an area of the country or the state that they want to be in? What are the networking opportunities like? Are there professors they want to work with? Because, you know, what's the mission of that law school? Because when a student's passion, you know, their why they want to go to law school, and a law school's mission, you know, what that law school offers, meet, when those are, there's a congruence there, then we see that the students are a great fit for the law school, and the law school is a good fit for the students.
Excellent. Now, some of this prospective students, one of the biggest stresses for applying is the personal statement. How can students make theirs stand out in a good way? And are there any common mistakes they should avoid?
Yeah, the best way to stand out in a good way is to have a well-edited statement. Take your time when you're writing your personal statement. Make sure that you're reading the prompt for whatever law school that you're applying to. Some law schools have a prompt or a question or a series of questions that they want you to answer. and adhere to any page or word limits. There's an old adage that's been attributed to like everyone, but it's if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And I like that because it shows that editing takes time, and to be concise in your writing takes a lot of editing. And so I think to stand out, no matter what story you're telling, it's got to be well written and well edited, and that just takes time, and it takes a lot of reflection and work. I think some things to avoid. You want to avoid cliches in your personal statement. I don't really like to see quotes from other people or talking about other people's stories. And I highlight those things because cliches aren't your words. Quotes aren't your words, and other people's stories aren't your words. It's not your story. The most common thing I see as far as the stories kind of go is, my inspiration to go to law school is because of my grandparents, and then they spend 2 pages talking about their grandparents' story and only 1 page talking about their story about why they want to go to law school. Well, your grandparents or your parents, whoever's inspiring you, it's wonderful they're inspiring you, but they're not the ones going to law school. We want to know about your story and what you're passionate about. So spend your time talking about yourself, which is admittedly a very difficult thing to do, to have that objectivity about yourself and to write about yourself. But if you spend the time, you do the outlining, you put in the work, you're going to have a good, strong personal statement.
So keep it about yourself.
Yep.
Stress that. Can't stress that enough.
Yep. It is a personal statement. Be personal.
Great advice. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. Are there any extracurricular activities or work experience just as important as grades and the LSAT score? And how do admissions weigh them in an application?
Yeah, so we don't have any specific weights that we put on any LSAT scores or extracurricular activities or anything as far as like a grading rubric or anything goes. So we look at everything holistically. But I think when we're looking at an application, we're looking at things that are attributes of a successful law student. And so, yes, LSAT and GPA are part of that. We want you to succeed academically and have those skills. But law school and the legal profession is much more than academics. Lawyers at the end of the day are public servants, and we are serving our community. We're taking on leadership roles in our community. And if you are developing those habits now as an undergraduate student, or if you're a non-traditional student out in your profession, then you should highlight those things. Some examples of that is, for a student that's in undergraduate school now, maybe you're involved in a few student organizations. I would rather see a student that's involved in 1 or 2 student organizations and taking on high-level leadership roles in those student organizations, because it shows that they're passionate about it, they're learning those leadership skills, and they're learning those organizational skills, than a student who is involved in like 10 different student organizations but is not taking on leadership roles. They're just kind of showing up maybe for the free food or whatever the activity is, but they're not taking on any higher level leadership roles. So we're looking for that type of leadership work. And then if you're a non-traditional student, you're out in the workforce, are you involved in your community? Are you taking on higher level leadership roles at your workplace? What are some different ways that you can highlight some of those skills that are really important when it comes to succeeding in law school and being a successful lawyer?
So beyond the application materials, how can students show they're a good fit for Widener Law Commonwealth?
Yeah, I think, kind of what we talked about in the beginning, what you're passionate about, why you want to go to law school and why you want to go to this law school or whichever law school you're applying to. I think those 2 questions, asking yourself are very important. But I think students, if they have the opportunity, should visit the law schools that they're interested in so they can get a better feel for the culture and the folks that are there. Because law schools have very similar curriculums, especially in their first year, but they might have very different cultures at each law school. Not every law school is Legally Blonde, where you're going to be standing in front of a class and, a teacher is going to be, hounding you about questions. We tend to be a little bit more collaborative here at Widener Law Commonwealth. Students work really well together. We've got different ways that we connect students with student study groups and organizations and mentorships, and not all law schools have that. You need to go visit the law school to have a better understanding of that. If you're unable to visit the law school, most schools, and us included, we have online information sessions, virtual open houses. There are other ways, student ambassadors that you can reach out to. We have a student ambassador blog that students can read about the law school and student experiences, alumni highlights, student spotlights. All those things are good ways to kind of understand a little bit more about the community and the culture and whether that's going to be a good fit for you.
So this is going to be the last one for this segment. When students tour law schools, you had mentioned touring a law school is a great way to see if it's a good fit for you. They usually ask about rankings, bar passage rates, and job placements. But what's one question they should ask that they don't often?
Yeah, I think when you're doing tours, here at Commonwealth, we try to have our student ambassadors do tours because you should be asking about campus culture or support for students. And I think it's really important that you hear from the students that are going through that themselves. And so ask about the student experience from students that are going through it. Hopefully, you're doing on a tour on a day that's not when they have something due and they're all stressed out. But if they are stressed out and they have something to do, you're going to get an honest answer about that reflection and about the workload. I think getting a good feel for the student experience is going to be really important, because law school, like we talked about, is more than just numbers. It's really about the opportunities to get out there, do work, network, build your professional resume, build your professional network. And those are more cultural things than something that's reflected on just a sheet of numbers.
All right. We are going to shift gears now, and we're going to talk about money because, let's be real, law school is an investment. Matt Brown, what is one thing applicants can do right now to improve their chances of receiving a scholarship?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the most important thing to do is research. You need to research, see what scholarships are available. Nobody's just going to come knock on your door and give you a $1,000 scholarship. So you need to go out there and actually look for scholarships. I recommend creating like an Excel spreadsheet. That way you can write down all the different scholarships, their deadline dates, because sometimes maybe you miss that deadline date. But if you have it in a spreadsheet, next year when that scholarship comes around, you can actually, apply for that scholarship then. Or maybe scholarships are for only second year or third year students. So if you have that list ahead of time, you know what scholarships you can apply for ahead of time. Another great resource too is we're partnered with AccessLex, and they have a great scholarship database that you can use. I was currently on there this week. There's close to 800 scholarships on there just for law students. So it's not undergrad students, it's only for law students. And they have a really good filter system. You can filter by state, you can filter by what kind of law you want to get into, and that will show you all the different national and local scholarships as well. So you really just need to do your research and be prepared ahead of time.
Beyond scholarships, how does Widener Law Commonwealth support students financially?
Well, we also are approved, not only scholarships, but we're also approved to administer all the VA benefits, all the different chapters of the GI Bill, including Yellow Ribbon. We also offer employment here part-time through our federal work-study program, where you can actually work a part-time job here on campus, and that's actually part of your financial aid package. Like I mentioned earlier, we do offer AccessLex, which not only is for scholarships, but you can use that to create budgets. You can do consult with one of their reps to actually, if you have questions about aid that you're not sure about, or maybe questions about your finances in general. And lastly, you have me as a resource. I have 13 years of financial aid experience, and I love sitting down with students and talking financial aid. Yesterday, I was sitting down with 3 students, and we were just, talking financial aid about all the different changes that are coming. And that's one thing here, as we can give you a personal touch in the financial aid department and really just sit down and work with you one-on-one with whatever financial aid questions you have.
you're definitely hands-on in that aspect that some of the bigger law schools might not have access to. I know I always see posters on the bulletin board outside the financial aid office to help give students some guidance. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
What about outside the box strategies? Are there creative or unexpected ways students can reduce law school costs that they might not think about?
One thing I recommend, and I'll probably stress during this whole podcast, is creating a budget. Creating a budget before you actually get to law school of how much your rent's going to be, how much your utilities are going to be, what other expenses you have, and then looking at your budget and deciding, okay, what can I cut back on? Can I reduce my cell phone plan? Can I cut cable and maybe just do Netflix or something? Whatever way you can cut your expenses ahead of time is going to help you when you get actually to law school and figure out not only how to pay for law school, but how to pay for your living situation as well. One big thing is credit card debt. Try to get your credit card debt paid down ahead of time before you get to law school, because that's one of your main probably monthly payments you're making. I know it is in my case, but I'm not going to law school, and so they need to figure out how to get that down a little bit, because when we create what we call a cost of attendance, we can't include credit card debt in that cost of attendance. So your aid is not going to pay for that credit card debt. So you need to find ways to actually decrease that before you actually get to law school.
And for those students worried about taking on that law school debt, because let's face it, it comes with the price tag, what's your best advice? I know you talked about budgeting ahead of time and creating spreadsheets and looking for those scholarships, but what other advice would you have for those students just super worried about taking on that debt?
Well, actually, I love talking to students who are actually worried about their student loan debt, because they're the ones that will actually come to me every semester and talk about, what their aid looks like, how much debt they're into. What you want to look at is there's things like good debt and bad debt. So good debt is something like buying a home, taking out a mortgage, because that has equity you can use later on. Then there's bad debt, where you want to just go on vacation, you don't have money, and you just throw it on a credit card. So student loan debt is considered good debt as long as you manage it responsibly and you actually graduate. You got to look at it like an investment in yourself, an investment in the future. You want to be a lawyer, and for most students, that's going to mean taking out student loan debt. But like we talked about earlier with the budget and everything, you can do creative ways to maybe reduce that student loan debt so you don't have as much student loan debt. When I started here, there was a saying I heard was, you live like a law student in law school and live like a lawyer after law school. And just the vice versa. If you live like a lawyer in law school, you're going to live like a student after law school. So it's only 3 or 4 years. So maybe you need to get a roommate, which is, everybody hates having a roommate, but maybe you need to get a roommate, or you need to find ways to cut things down just for this short time period until you become a lawyer, and then you can experience all the benefits of that.
Is it actually possible, you were just saying that some of the students come to you semester after semester, is it actually possible to negotiate financial aid offers? And if so, what's the best approach?
I really dislike the word negotiate, because there's no such thing as negotiations in the regulations for Department of Ed for financial aid. When you see those things on Facebook and Reddit, things where they'll always say, negotiate your financial aid offer no matter what they're usually referring to is undergraduate degrees. So for undergraduates, when you completed a FAFSA, they use 2 years prior tax information. And student can request what we call professional judgment, where they can say, because of this situation, like maybe you got laid off or you lost your job went overseas, I want the FAFSA to use my current information to determine your aid. And what that would do, if you get approved for that, would be to allow you to get more federal Pell Grant. But as someone going into law school, you already have your bachelor's degree, and you don't qualify for the federal Pell Grant. So the whole negotiation thing with the professional judgment really would not affect you, because no matter how much you made, you're basically getting the same amount of loans because you already have a bachelor's degree. What you can do, though, and I have some students who have already, talked to me about this, is they get into law school, maybe they didn't budget very correctly, or, maybe something's out of whack with their expenses, they can ask for a budget increase, where we can actually maybe increase their cost of attendance, which allows them to take out more federal student loans. The good part is they can get more money to live on, but the bad part is they're going to be taking more student loan debt. So it's kind of like last resort. I'd rather see the student try to work on their budget and reducing costs before we go the option of actually increasing their cost of attendance and taking out more student loan debt.
And real quick before we conclude this segment, are there any key FAFSA dates or financial aid dates students should be aware of?
The faster you get it done, the better. We haven't started importing the 25-26 FAFSAs yet. I do know we start, I just started in October, so this new class is like my first brand new class here for law school, and I believe it's about April 1st we start sending out information on what you need to get completed. The FAFSA is the big one, and they can start doing that right away. Again, you can list up to 10 schools on your FAFSA, so that's always your first step on getting that complete. And it's so easy now. Usually you can get it done in about 10-15 minutes.
That's a big change for when I went
Yeah,
to my undergrad.
And the good news is that you don't need your parents anymore because you already have your bachelor's degree and you're working on a graduate degree.
So now that we're in segment 3, we're going to call this one the lightning round. And basically, I'll say a statement, and you both will tell me if it's true or false, and then kind of give us an explainer on why it's true or why it's false. So if you're ready, this one is probably more for Matt. But I'm sorry, we have 2 Matts here. Let me clarify. Matthew Kerns.
I'm here. I'm ready.
We say that at the law school. When you meet with both Matts, you've had a good day of customer service,
Yeah.
and you know what you're doing now.
All right, Matthew Kerns. A perfect LSAT score guarantees admission.
False. A good LSAT score is obviously a good piece of good news, but an LSAT, a high LSAT score does not guarantee admission. We look at all applications holistically, and I've certainly denied people that have had high LSAT scores, and I've accepted people that have had low LSAT scores. We're really looking at everything in an application package and not just your LSAT or GPA.
This one's probably for Matt Brown. Only students with top grades get scholarships.
Oh, that's false. Not only, we have our merit-based scholarships, which are based off grades, but we also have endowed scholarships as well here at Widener. And the endowed scholarships might be just based off, like some are for first responders, or maybe you're a veteran. So we have a lot of different endowed scholarships that are not merit-based.
Number 3, if you are waitlisted, it means you have no chance of getting in.
That's false. We go to our wait list every year. We also have a trial admissions program that we offer students that are not outright admitted. So it's definitely possible to get off the wait list if you're on the wait list. Personally, I like to keep a very short wait list. I would rather let a student know if they're in or not because I know that being on a wait list is very stressful. And so try to keep that as small as possible so students can plan accordingly.
Rolling admissions means schools admit students randomly.
That is false. So rolling admissions means we review applications roughly in the order that they are received. And so we are constantly reviewing applications and getting decisions out, and roughly about the order that they're received. So if you apply earlier in the cycle, you'll probably get your admissions decision earlier than someone who applies later in the cycle. There might be some weird instance where a student doesn't submit all their information at the time of when they apply, or we need clarification on an application. There's a question that arises, so we might need some more clarification. So that might extend the time it takes to review an application, but generally we review applications and get out decisions in the order that the applications are received.
You should apply to as many law schools as possible to increase your chances of getting in.
That would be very expensive, so that's going to be false. I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Why do you want to go to law school, and why do you want to go to that law school? You certainly want to have your reach law schools, your safe law schools that you're applying for, and your target schools. I think that's a good way to kind of think about where you're applying. But if you're just applying willy-nilly to every law school that you can, you're not putting out your best work because you're not putting out your best applications because you're not putting in the work to really think about why you want to go to that law school, and really diving deep into the application and asking yourself those critical questions. So I would say that's a false.
I'm going to break my rule and jump in.
Go for it.
How many law schools do you think you should apply to on average?
Yeah, it depends.
For an average student.
Yeah, it depends on the student. That's the typical law school answer. It depends, right? But most law schools are applying to, or most law students are applying to about 5 law schools is the average number of applications that a person submits. If you're applying to, I see students that apply to 10 law schools. If you're applying to more than 10, that's a lot of law schools, and that's getting very expensive with application fees and CAS fees and everything pretty quickly. So, you want to be targeted in where you're applying.
And how much is our law school application here at Widener Law Commonwealth?
Yeah, the application itself is $60. However, if you apply before May 1st, that's our priority admissions deadline, then the application fee is automatically waived. So, and the majority of our students are applying before May 1st. So, unless you're really applying late in the cycle, your application fee is going to be waived.
All right. Now I'm jumping back into the true or false. All right. See, I break my rules all the time.
Such a rule breaker.
This is from Matt Brown. Financial aid is only available for students with financial need.
Oh, that is false. Like I mentioned earlier, the federal financial aid, basically, no matter if you have a financial need or not, you're basically getting the same amount of federal student loans. Now, there are some scholarships that are based off financial need, and there are some scholarships that are not based off financial need. So it's mostly a false statement. It's mostly some scholarships are based off financial need, but not financial aid itself.
All right, next question. Private scholarships aren't worth applying for because they're too competitive.
That is false. First off, if you're not doing something because it's too competitive, law school might not be the right fit for you because getting into law school is competitive, let alone, everything else that comes along with law school. There are a lot of scholarships out there that you might not be eligible, that aren't as competitive. Like yesterday I was looking through XSLX and I found a scholarship for Armstrong County, which I had to look up. It's a small county in western PA. And they have an $1,100 scholarship. And I went on their website and they were showing the past recipients. Well, in 2021-22, nobody applied. 2022-23, nobody applied. And then they quit listing the previous winners because I think nobody applied. So you just have to, again, like we talked earlier about doing research, you just need to do your research and apply. The worst thing they're going to do is say no to you.
I probably could answer this one myself with my crash course in financial aid after speaking with you, Matt Brown. But the FAFSA is only for undergraduates, not law students.
Definitely false. In order to be eligible for any federal student loans, you have to complete a FAFSA. And not only that, even if you don't want to take out loans, you still want to complete a FAFSA because a lot of scholarships are sometimes based off financial need. Some of our endowed scholarships are like that. And if you applied for one of our endowed scholarships and you don't have a FAFSA on file, we can't tell if you have an unmet need for financial wise. Also, if you want to do federal work study, you need a FAFSA on file as well. So I recommend, even if you don't want loans and you're going to pay out of pocket, fill out a FAFSA every year. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, and it might benefit you in the future.
A lower LSAT score automatically disqualifies you from getting merit aid.
That would be false as well. They also, I believe, Matt Kerns can break into if he needs to, but they also look at GPA as well. It's not just with LSATs.
Yeah, about 95% of our students get some type of merit scholarship coming into law school, and so that means that students above our median LSAT score and below our median LSAT score are receiving some type of scholarship. So that would be false.
All right, and this is our final one for this lightning round. Law students don't have time for part-time jobs, so budgeting isn't that important.
Definitely false. If you get anything out of this podcast from my side, create a budget ahead of time. Budgets are probably, I think, one of the most, financial aid-wise, I think the budget's the most important thing you can do before you start.
All right, you both did amazing. I know I broke a couple rules in there. But before we wrap up, I want to do a little law school insider Q&A. And this applies to both of you. Feel free to jump in. What is one thing about Widener Law Commonwealth that surprises applicants when they visit?
I think when they come to visit and they're meeting with our student ambassadors, I think when they realize how accessible faculty are, I think that is one thing that really surprises students, because our faculty really are very accessible. Their offices are on the same floor as the classrooms. They hold office hours. They stay after class. They get to know all their students by name. And so I think that's surprising to many students, especially if they come from large undergraduate schools, to see, how much of a community is here and how collaborative it is.
And I agree with that. I've only been here since October, so I haven't gone through this process yet. But I have met with a couple, prospective students, and they come in and they're able to meet with people one-on-one. It's not setting up a Zoom appointment and stuff like that. You're able to actually meet with the staff here.
If you could give every incoming law student a law school survival kit, what 3 items would be in it?
Well, I would say budget. Since I've been here since October, I've only been here about 4 months for law school, but I've seen quite a few students who come into me and they talk about, I can't support myself on what I'm getting. And we have to, and I ask them, did you create a budget before you came to law school? 99% of the time, it's no. Or when they created a budget, it wasn't very accurate to what their actual situation was going to be like. So having a budget ahead of time and knowing what you're going to be paying, and that way you can make those tough decisions on what you need to cut back on, will help out tremendously before coming to law school.
All right, so budget is
Budget, yes.
your law school kit. What about you, Matthew Kerns?
Well, mine would be, one would be budget, because I think Matt's absolutely right. It is incredibly important to do that. I think another one is, there's a book that I always recommend to students called Painless American Government, and it is like a high school, maybe even middle school level book about how the U.S. government works and how the court systems work, and I think that's a really great refresher for a lot of students to get prepared for law school, because once you're in school, you really are learning about the processes behind the scenes of how the law works, how it's created. It's much more than just a bill on Capitol Hill and all those type of things. You're really diving deep into it. So a little bit of a refresher on, that structure and process behind the scenes is really important. And then the third thing I would say is, make sure that you have those tough discussions with family and friends about your commitment to law school and your availability. Especially your first year, you need to treat law school like a full-time job. And, family members or friends that haven't gone to law school or maybe graduate education might not know the pressures and the time commitment that you're going through. So you have to have a tough conversation with them very early on and say, I might not be able to come home every weekend, or I might not be able to come home for Thanksgiving this year. Thanksgiving is right before finals. I need to, be outlining and preparing for school. So having those tough conversations very early on before you enter law school is going to make law school easier for you as you maintain those relationships with those clear expectations. So, I think that would be, those 3 things, the budget, an understanding of how U.S. government and laws are structured, and then, having those tough conversations with family and friends would be a good way to start off law school very strong.
And what was the name of that book? I just want to make sure we include a link in the comments.
Yeah, it's called Painless American Government. It's a series of books, the Painless series of books. It's just a high school, maybe even middle school level book that clearly outlines how American government works.
Very good. What is the best piece of advice you've given to prospective law students or current law students?
The best piece of advice, I think the best piece of advice that I'll steal this from our student ambassadors when we have events and our student ambassadors are giving advice. I think the one piece of advice that they always talk about is having good time management skills in law school. that comes up as the number one most important thing, is being able to manage your time. And that's why I think thinking about law school as a full-time job is really important. You have to have work-life balance, but to have work-life balance, you've got to have good time management skills. You've got to be organized. You've got to not only have your budget squared away, but you've got to have your calendar squared away. Know when assignments are due. Know when you have to be prepared for class and what's coming up. And schedule time for yourself, because you need to have a mental break at some point, and you need to have those healthy habits as well. So developing time management skills, I think it would be the best piece of advice that I would give.
What about you, Matt Brown?
I bet you probably know what I'm going to say.
Does it start with
But
a B?
besides budget, definitely take a more interest in your federal student loans that you're going to be taking out. A lot of times I've done 13 years of undergraduate financial aid. A lot of times their parents will handle their financial aid, or they don't really care about it. They're getting a lot of grants. But at law school, and I've noticed a lot of students are like that here, is take an interest on learning about the different repayment plans. There's a lot of changes right now going in through the Department of Ed, if we still have a Department of Ed, and there's going to be a lot more changes coming up. So sitting down, meeting with me, or just taking an interest in what your student loan debt is, how you're planning to pay that off. That's one question I have when students come meet with me, is like, okay, you have $50,000 student loan debt already. What's your plan after graduation? Like, how are you going to pay this? And you need to start thinking that ahead of time. That way you have a plan in place in how you're going to handle your federal student loan debt.
Great advice. And as those new rules and regulations come out, we're definitely going to be speaking with you in the future about that once you've had time to comb through it all.
I hope so. It changes by the hour, so.
All right. So this has been a great conversation. This is just for fun. If you both weren't working in law school admissions and financial aid, what do you think you'd be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think anyone dreams of getting into law school admissions as a young kid growing up. It's something that you sort of fall into, and it's been a fantastic career for me. When I went to law school, I knew I didn't want a traditional law career working at a firm, and so admissions was a great fit for me. And I think it's a great fit because I get to help people achieve their dreams. I get to talk with students and work with students that want to go to law school and want to achieve stuff, and so I get to work with them to help them reach their goals and figure out a way to get there. And sometimes coming to Widener Law Commonwealth is the best path to meet their goals. Sometimes it's not doing law school, doing something completely different. But having those conversations and helping students set goals and achieve their dreams is something that I really like. So what I'd be doing if I wasn't in law school admissions, I would be in some other type of helping profession. I don't know exactly what it would be. It would probably be law related, since I've got a law degree. But it's the helping folks achieve their goals and work towards something positive that I really like about the job.
Is it typical for admissions to have someone who went to law school on their team?
Yes, for law school admissions, most law schools have at least the person in my role, in the Dean of Admissions role, typically has a Juris Doctor degree. It doesn't mean everyone in the law school admissions office has a law degree, but typically the person that's leading the office does have a law degree.
I think you're a great asset to the team, because not only have you been through this yourself personally, but you've helped guide a lot of incoming students through our doors. So thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. It's a fun job.
And Matt Brown, if it wasn't financial aid, what would you be doing?
Well, like Mr. Kerns said, nobody dreams of being a financial aid person at all. Actually, I started out as a marketing major until I got to accounting, and I failed it miserably. And I switched to communications with an emphasis on TV production and radio production as well. Everybody falls into financial aid somehow. Nobody knows how we got here, but we just fall in. I used to help people on public assistance find employment, and I saw students that were going back to school, how that was stopping the cycle of poverty. So I really emphasized students who wanted to go back to school to better themselves. And that's how I eventually got into financial. It was either financial aid or career services, and financial aid was the first one that came up. So if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be running my own business or my own store. That's something I always enjoy doing. I'd love to make movies, but I'm so far out of it now that the technology has changed so much, so I wouldn't be able to do it.
We could talk all things comms, because I came from a background of TV and communication.
Oh, great.
Before we go, and if our listeners want to learn more, like scheduling a visit or get in touch with admissions or our financial aid department, where should they go?
Yeah, I think the best resource would be just visiting our website for right now. We've got a tab right there that says admissions. It has all our contact information. We've got a link to schedule a visit if you want to come to class. Our telephone number, email is on there. So please feel free to reach out. We also have monthly information sessions that we do on Zoom every month. We have a webinar series called Creating a Competitive Application, where we talk about the application process. And we've got open houses and accepted students days and different events that we've got going on all year. So the website is the best source of information starting out. We've really tried to develop that over the last few years to be a great starting point. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah, same. Definitely the website is the way to go to reach us. You'll get all the information on there, and you'll have my contact information on there as well. Even if you just want to call me up and just talk, what you need to get started on early in the financial aid process. You can do that, and I can let you know what you need to get done.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Widener Law Commonwealth's podcast for more insights into our law school, student life, and career planning. Until next time, take care.
Widener University Commonwealth Law School is the Pennsylvania capital's only law school, with 4 specialized centers of legal scholarship through its Law and Government Institute, Environmental Law and Sustainability Center, Business Advising Program, and Center for Equity and Justice. Widener Law Commonwealth offers an exceptional learning experience that is personal, practical, and professional. Visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu for more information.